Good morning, everyone, and thanks very much to everyone for coming to our webinar on the support for European cooperation projects for 2024. My name is Katie Lowry, and I'm the joint head of the Creative Europe Desk Ireland Culture Office based in the Arts Council. I'm here with my colleague Aoife Tunney, who is acting head of international arts in the Arts Council with responsibility for Creative Europe. So I'm also joined and delighted to say I'm joined by Patrick Lansley, who is the Horizon Europe contact point for Cluster 2, which is Culture, Creativity and Inclusive Society. So Patrick's going to talk a little bit about another funding program that really is open to and covers the culture and creative sectors. Because it's important before we start that while Creative Europe is the main EU funding program for the cultural and creative sectors, there are a number of other programs that also support cultural activity, albeit through different objectives. So I'm going to stop sharing now and invite Patrick to start presenting. I'm sorry, Patrick, I can't quite hear you yet, so I don't know if there's something.
Is that any better now?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay, I will forgo the headphones. I don't know what's wrong with them. Okay, thank you then very much to the Creative Europe Desk for giving me this space to talk briefly just about some of the funding opportunities that exist under Horizon Europe, which may be of some of you attending or watching this event. My name is Patrick Lansley. I am the national contact point for Cluster 2, which is Culture, Creativity and Inclusive Society, and I'll explain what that means in practice in a moment. And my role is to provide information and guidance to Ireland-based applicants to European Commission research funding schemes. So, first of all, what is Horizon Europe? Well, it is the European Union's key way of funding research and innovation across Europe. It is divided over a series of 7-year frameworks. This particular framework we're in runs from 2021 to 2027, and it has a total budget of just under 100 billion euros. Ireland has had very good success across this framework so far. It's just since 2021, it's drawn down over 500 million, and we know of further announcements to make. So that's a bare minimum number, and we know it's actually quite a bit higher. So it really is a very valuable source of funding for Irish researchers. It has quite a few different approaches to research funding, and I'll touch on some of those momentarily. The common theme, though, is that all of the funding systems aim to strengthen Europe, either in terms of social cohesion, the health of populations, economic strengths, the strength of European research base, environment, etc., etc. Horizon Europe itself is structured around 3 different pillars. The first pillar is known as excellent science, and this is usually for university-based researchers, and it will provide for a bottom-up approach, so applicants can research in any area they like, so long as they can make a strong enough case for it. The third pillar here is titled Innovative Europe, and it's strongly focused on Europe's industrial capacity. But the pillar that we're interested in here today is pillar 2, which is global challenges. And this pillar covers a series of areas deemed key to Europe, focuses on health, security, digital development, climate-related matters. The area, though, that we're most interested in today is what Cluster 2, which is my area, and that's culture, creativity, and inclusive society. This cluster, it covers 3 key areas. So the first area it covers is democracy. That looks at how democratic institutions can work better and increase people's faith in democratic processes. We then have projects which look at key social, environmental, digital, and economic transformations that Europe is undergoing at the moment, looking into how they will affect European citizens. And then we come to the area that I think is probably most of interest to people here, which is looking at creative industries and cultural heritage. And for a variety of calls here, there's a variety of calls here that we could imagine will include significant input from the workers in the creative arts and similar fields. So, for example, at present, there are calls related to how the cultural and creative industries can push for a sustainable climate transition, how creative industries can benefit from recent digital advances to improve global competitiveness, and then to investigate how cultural and creative industries can promote Europe and European values around the world. If that sounds kind of instrumental in approach, then it is. I mean, this is necessarily, they want to see the real world impacts of creative industries, although they are entirely receptive to the notion of them having intrinsic value in and of themselves. Projects in this area, they will tend to last about 3 years. They can, in some instances, stretch to 5. And the usual budget for a project here is around €3 million split over the consortium. The core consortium itself will include a bare minimum of 3 partners coming from 3 different European member states or other countries who have joined the scheme. So examples of those will be the UK, Norway, Turkey, even New Zealand has now actually joined up, although they haven't been massively involved so far. In practice, projects rarely have fewer than 6 partners, and something around 8 to 10 is quite common for this area. Now, the projects are designed in such a way that they really have to involve a range of different perspectives in terms of backgrounds. And so you will often find that the projects are led by more traditional university-based researchers, etc. And in part, that is because the universities have the infrastructure to run these things administratively as well as intellectually, but they're by no means the only type of researcher that they want to see. So we will see projects which involve universities, NGOs, small businesses of various sorts, and creative partners as well. So that's why I'm here talking to you today. The next deadline here is in February 2024. It's very close. They're very big applications, big and complicated. So it's improbable that if you're not already involved in something, that you'll be meeting that deadline from here. However, what I would say is if this sort of thing does interest you, then keep an eye out over 2024 when we'll start to see the sorts of calls that they're running that will have deadlines in 2025, which is a bit more achievable deadline-wise. I'd just like to stress before I move on, I've highlighted the opportunities here available in my own areas, but it's entirely possible that you might find ways to work across other elements of the Horizon Europe programme. So just for example, we've seen calls where we look at public acceptance of environmental measures, and that can include kind of creative industry approaches to that acceptance. So if you find that there are other elements of the Horizon Europe programme that you're interested in, then I have various colleagues who work on each of those areas, and they will be more than happy to support you in looking into those. Just to give a couple of examples of projects where Irish creative partners have had an integral role. So the first project I'll highlight is called Gaming for Peace. And this project looked at how to produce what we call serious games for training of staff involved in conflict prevention missions. And that's particularly where there are quite a diverse range of personnel from various different backgrounds. As the name suggests, this project needed somebody to be able to produce the games, And in this case, it was actually an Ireland-based indie games company called Haunted Planet. A second example with Irish creative industries then. Oh, sorry. Music 360. So this is a project that aims to gather data on the use of background music in various venues. Now, this kind of ambient provision adds considerably to the attractiveness of venues, but is there any way that you can put a price on that? And if so, is there a way to ensure that the creators of the music that's being played are properly recompensed? This project will investigate that, and the Irish Music Rights Organisation is a signed-up member of the project. So these are just two examples when there's a vital contribution from a creative industries partner. Okay. If you are interested in this sort of area, it's worth having a quick look at what the current calls look like. I've added links here on the documents. I believe this also gets sent out as a PDF after we're done here. So the one on the left, which we call the work program, is probably the easiest to use, and it covers all the calls which have come out over 2023 and 24. As I mentioned earlier, we'll start seeing calls in 2025, 26, which will start to get announced over the coming year or so. It's a very big document, but the calls are all listed on the first few pages, and they're usually quite self-descriptive, so you can browse them quite quickly to see if there's anything there that piques your interest. As I say, deadline is pretty soon, so again, just to emphasize, I'm using these as an example of what might interest you in the future rather than immediate possibilities. Although, if there was something that was just really perfect for you, then let me know and we can see what we might be able to work out. So that concludes my presentation. I just wanted to note that my position is supported by the Irish Research Council, and I am based within the Irish Universities Association, but although I am based in the Universities Association, my remit covers absolutely anybody in Ireland who is interested in applying to these schemes. So if that is you, then please do let me know. Thank you again to the Creative Europe Desk for hosting me. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Patrick. That was really, really interesting. And I think it's so great to have kind of a face to the name and a contact that people can follow up with, because I know sometimes certainly some of the larger research funds and Horizon Europe can seem very intimidating to a culture or kind of arts organization. So it's great to have that visible contact here that people can follow up with. So let me just start sharing myself and we'll get started. Okay, can everyone see that? No. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. I was just saying to Patrick before we started, this is par for the course for us, technical difficulties. So let me see. Yeah, hold on, sorry. Sorry, I just have to change something quickly. I just can't, sorry, I'm gonna just stop again. Aoife, are you able to share? Let me just
yeah, I was just gonna say I can try.
I just can't get it to there.
Let's see. Am I on? Can you see it now for me?
Yeah, it's just to start from the beginning.
Yeah. Sorry. Why can't I go up there?
Okay, so let's kick
I'm
off.
just going to go with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're here today to talk about the Support for European Cooperations project strand, which is the main funding strand of the Creative Europe program and typically accounts for between 70 and 80% of their budget kind of year on year. So just a bit of background, if we can move on to the next slide. So who we are. So like Patrick, we're the designated national contact point here in Ireland for the Creative Europe program. We are comprised of 3 offices. So there are 2 offices dealing with the media program, as it's called, or media activities. So these are actions covering the film and audiovisual. And the Creative Europe Desk Ireland Culture Office will cover all the arts and culture sectors here in Ireland, and we're based in the Arts Council. So what do we do? Well, you're kind of seeing a big part of what we do is that we host information sessions and webinars on funding programs. We're tasked with promoting the program at kind of local, regional, and national level. We collaborate with a number of stakeholders and agencies here to kind of, lever our reach in a way and get the word out wider. We work within a wider network of Creative Europe desks. So for all the 40 countries in the program, there's a version of us and we work together. We work quite a bit, I guess, developing proposals and assisting with partner search requests. So really our, I guess, relationship with the sector is kind of one over time. So if this is, I know there's people here that are experienced applicants, but then we often have people that we might be at the start of your journey of looking at Creative Europe funding. So I guess the biggest thing I always say to people when you're thinking about European funding is really understanding why the EU funds culture. So obviously there's the starting point and the bedrock of any funding for arts and culture is an understanding of the intrinsic value to our lives. And so that can't be underestimated. I guess in the context of EU funding, and Patrick kind of spoke a bit about this as well, it's understanding, I guess, that the arts and culture contribute positively to the lives of European citizens and obviously promote broader objectives around social cohesion. There's also a number of treaty commitments that kind of set out culture's role within international relations, so that bit of a political dimension, and crucially, they're linked to broader European policy. And just to say here, one thing I think is that what I've seen, I've done this job for a number of years, is there's really an increasing kind of alignment between European policy in the field of culture and Irish policy. So you'll kind of see here, in particular, we'll go into that a bit more, but the gender equality strategy, you'll see very clearly a lot of agencies and certainly the Arts Council have equality, diversity, and inclusion strategies. There's certainly a lot of policy now, and you'll see that across all the European funding programs around kind of supporting the Green Deal by encouraging sustainable actions. And the Arts Council, you can see is developing a climate policy. There's certainly another one here that comes up, and Patrick referenced that around the digital shift, which in a lot of ways has been accelerated through AI and lots of other new technologies. And the Arts Council's just published its digital strategy. So I think, in a way, this does position arts and culture organizations here in Ireland to be in a good place when looking at European funding. So let's go on. So how the EU funds culture. So there's a number of direct funding actions. So many of you would be familiar with the European Capitals of Culture. We've had it a number of times here in Ireland. There's also a number of prizes that you might be familiar with. The Europa Nostra, the Cultural Heritage Prize. We've had a number of organizations and projects recognized here. There's also prizes around literature, architecture, and music. But we're here to talk about the centrally managed or administered funding program, Creative Europe. So looking at the budget, I don't want to say the C word, the COVID word, but it really did give birth to a larger budget than was additionally predicted, because the EU recognized how hard the cultural and creative sectors were hit during COVID. So there was an increased budget, which is great. So we're looking at, for the overall program, encompassing both culture, film and media, and what they call cross-sectoral actions, it's 2.44 billion over 7 years. We probably should have started with this because Horizon Europe's budget really is enormous, but we're here to talk about culture. So the Creative Europe program, culture priorities, this is important because this is the overall framework for the program, what they're hoping to achieve. So you'll see here first in response to COVID and the recognition of the vulnerability of the sector in some ways, we see resilience and recovery. The next one, and you'll see these within the cooperation project's objectives, is fostering innovation and joint creation, cooperation and exchange of practices. I know the language is terrible in some ways, and capacity building of artists, and key players and multipliers. But what we're really seeing here is, while, you know, organizations receive the funding through a partnership model, the impact is really to get to kind of artists and the broader sector within Europe. So they are looking at projects that can demonstrate, depending on the scale of funding, but significant reach. So here we go. What do you need to think about before you are applying for, and this is really any EU fund, certainly any Creative Europe fund, is the EU has what they call cross-cutting priorities. So really within what we're talking about today, all projects must address these to some extent. So the first is proposals that consider inclusion, access, gender equality, and the environment, and the fight against climate change. One thing to note here that's interesting is we have seen an increasing focus on access, and this is an addition here, explicitly spelling that out. And here there's a couple of policy documents when talking about, I guess, the greening side of things, and we've linked them here, that applicants are encouraged to take into account. So it's the study on, anyway, the links are there. So let's think about EDI. And again, certainly if you are in an ongoing relationship with the Arts Council, you are being asked to do this. It's a condition of funding now for our strategic funding organizations. And here is some guidance on what you need to consider when putting together your proposal. So really you're looking for activities that can demonstrate you're reaching people from different geographical and socioeconomic backgrounds in order to ensure equal access of participation. So what you'll see here, sometimes over the years, there's been a number of organizations that feel that they are in a geographically remote area. They're not in an urban center, but this is precisely what the EU can be looking for communities and places that don't normally have access to the type of activities you're applying for funding for. You'll need to demonstrate that you've developed a methodology for implementing your project with a gender perspective, promoting gender equality, and this is terrible language, and non-discrimination mainstreaming. So I wish I had never said those words. It's kind of confusing, but really it's just like having a engagement plan, understanding who the people and the audiences and the underrepresented groups that you want to reach, and being able to demonstrate that you've thought about that and how you're going to address it. Here we have another thing of artists with disabilities in the creative process and activities of the project. So this is really where we see the access. At our most recent meeting, training meeting with the European Commission, a large-scale Creative Europe project called Access Europe presented. And so this is the thinking about access, you know, across all areas of your project, and showing that they have at least been considered. So let's look. We've been on an upward trajectory in some ways, but looking at last year alone as a kind of a guide for this, there were 11 cooperation projects funded. 2 were lead organizations led by Irish companies, and 9 were partner organizations. This represented 7.7 million overall in project grants and just under 900,000 directly to Ireland. So there's a number of funding strands in the Creative Europe programme. So we're here today to talk about the main one, European cooperation projects. But you can see here there's a number of ones, and we communicate around each of these. So do keep an eye out for those. So let's look at what is a cooperation project. So essentially these are multi-annual projects. They'll last between on average 2 to 4 years. They are artistic projects, and they work with partners in different European countries. Projects that are funded under this strand will need to demonstrate that they achieve a common objective across borders. So if you are in a particular sector in Ireland, chances are you experience some similar challenges or barriers that your peers in Europe do. So you're coming together to address those. Crucially, these projects, the EU, I don't imagine there's any fund that they would fund something 100%. They do require match funding. So they do require each partner to kind of bring money to the table, so to speak. As I said, it's not open to individuals. Currently, it's only open to organizations, but artists do receive a lot of benefit by these programs. So an individual artist, should keep an eye on some of the Creative Europe projects funded here in Ireland, because they'll often have advertised kind of artist opportunities, either workshops or residencies or opportunities like that. These are interesting because they support diverse range of partnerships and fund a broad range of activities. So these projects, what can happen is it's not always partners doing the exact same thing. You can have a huge range. You can have, we have one, it's a lead, Music for Galway is leading on a project, and one of their partners is a game developer. So you will see scope here. And I would say, and we'll kind of go into this funds a lot of activities that you would find difficult to fund through a lot of, it's not just project funding. There is kind of organizational support there. So this year, the biggest change is normally there are 3 strands offered under cooperation projects, small, medium, and large. The large scale has been suspended this year because they're trying to put the additional funding into the medium scale. So the small scale, this would be what would be called the entry-level strand. And I'm sorry, I think those budget figures, the percentage, just ignore them for now and we'll amend. So the small scale would be the entry-level scale. This would require a minimum of 3 partners from 3 different European countries. And, I know Patrick mentioned sometimes the average would be much greater than 3. In this case, a lot of projects are 3 partners, sometimes 4. So this is like their version of an entry-level scheme. It will offer grants of up to 200,000, and that can be 80% of your total budget, and they can last up to 4 years. The medium scale, so this is by far the most popular strand. This was a new introduction in 2021. So this requires a minimum of 5 partners from 5 European countries, and it offers grants of up to 1 million, which can be 70% of your budget. So who can apply? So it's really broad here. So these are any kind of organization with a legal entity. It can be an NGO, a cultural institution, a small arts organization, a museum. But really what you need to demonstrate here is that you have a track record in delivering the types of activities you're applying for. You must be based and operating in one of the participating program countries, as I said, and we can send the link. There's 40 countries currently signed up to Creative Europe. And you must be able to demonstrate you have sufficient financial and operational capacity. And crucially here, it's proportionate to what you are applying for. So if you are a tiny micro organization applying to lead for a €4 million project, there could be questions there. However, if you are a small organization applying for, kind of a small scale, it could be different. So don't get too put off by that in some ways. So here we go with the overall objectives of the program. So you will need to select one of these. The first is probably the most common because it supports artistic production in some ways, is the transnational creation and circulation. So this aims to strengthen the transnational creation and circulation of European works and artists. It promotes the advancement of collaborations, and increased outreach co-production is a tool. So really, this is for these kind of artistic exchanges. They can be in the form of, kind of networking opportunities. They certainly are touring of productions, of exhibitions. So this is kind of, this is what this objective supports. And then here we have innovation. So this is really looking at ways in which to ensure the kind of long-term sustainability of the arts and culture and creative sectors across Europe. So this, if you are ticking this objective in a way, you're really showing that you're trying to enhance the capacity of the European cultural and creative sectors to nurture talent, innovate, and prosper, and generate jobs and growth. So this is about kind of long-term sustainability of organizations within the cultural sectors in Europe. So once you have selected your objective, you will need to select your priorities. Now here we go, really you want to be really focused here, because you really should be looking at selecting kind of two here, I would say. So the first one is around kind of audience. And this is where, when I was speaking about, I guess, the access, kind of side of things, this is where you can really kind of bring, if you kind of work in those areas, you can bring it in under this one. So this is about seeking to increase access, engagement to, and participation in culture for kind of audiences across Europe. And here we have social inclusion. So this is for kind of projects for, of, or by marginalized groups, underrepresented groups that foster and support intercultural dialogue. Here we have, this one is self-explanatory. We have sustainability. So this is you're demonstrating the ways in which your project contributes to the European Green Deal and European, I guess, sustainability targets. This is really interesting one. It's digital. And this year they've specifically framed it in the context of the challenges related to the fast changing digital environment globally and certainly within Europe. So this is looking for projects where the cultural and creative sectors are trying to kind of begin or undertake their digital transition to this new reality. So it's looking at projects that address both the opportunities and challenges, that we're facing now. And here we go. This is kind of clear. It's the international dimension. So this is looking for projects that seek to build capacity to be active at an international level. So this is kind of interesting. And you can see certainly the music sector is responding very strongly to this one. Here we have what they deem an annual sector, or it's usually an annual sectoral priority. It's slightly changed. So the EU will ring fence a certain portion of the budget. In past, it was 10% to support an annual priority. And this year, the priority is around continued support to the Ukrainian cultural and creative sectors. So I think I'm stopping now, and Aoife is going to come in now.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. So we're going to move on to the actual breakdown of the application, or even just thinking about your project from the start. So as part of cooperation projects, there is something called work packages, and you might have heard this before because we definitely have talked about it in all of our webinars. It is kind of the crux of your project. And it's really about looking at your project in terms of these separate areas. What we would say is to, and it's highlighted in the middle there, but it should really be at the top, that we would, from the outset, to keep your work packages to a minimum. And this will keep budgeting and reporting on a simpler level for you throughout the project. So with the work packages, we're looking at eligible costs and activities, and you group these under the defined work packages. So in a moment, we'll look at the actual names of the work packages. It allows for a greater emphasis on defined deliverables, outcomes, and results. And it's a really good way of actually shaping your project from the get-go. Because when you look at each of the work packages, it makes sense that the activities are grouped under the headings, and it allows you to shape the project. Lump sums will be calculated per the work packages and the activities therein, and they will be paid only when the work packages are completed. And just to say there that this means the 20%, your final 20%, so you will get a lump sum at the beginning of 80% to carry out your project, but the final 20% you will receive once your work package is completed and you're reporting. You need to clearly identify whether an action is being completed. So this is ongoing throughout the project. Your monitoring and documentation and evaluation of each of the work packages is really key, so that when you come to the end of a work package and the activities as part of it, you can really clearly define that or identify that that work package is finished. So where to begin? As I said, when you're thinking of your cooperation projects, including your partners, as part of those meetings, you should be starting from the very beginning. Obviously, you'll have a proposal, you'll be looking at your priorities and the objectives, but from the beginning, you should start defining the whole project in accordance to the work packages and the activities that will take part of those work packages and the costs. So an example of a work package of work packages, the two main ones that you must deliver on are management, administration, and coordination, and implementation. And within implementation, there is artistic and creative expression, capacity building, networking, and knowledge sharing. Another key work package is communication and dissemination. Sorry, there's three. So those three, and beyond that, we would say really don't go further than 4 or 5 max as other kind of areas of work, because really at the end of the day, this is what you need to deliver on, and this is also what you need to report on, and kind of be constantly evaluating and documenting. So to really keep that not too onerous on you as the overall project. So looking firstly at the work package management, administration, and coordination. So the activities in this work package could be planning and preparation, meetings, evaluation, quality control, coordination activities, preparation of reports, etc. You will be asked to then define what your deliverables are, and they could be agenda or minutes of meetings, evaluation and or quality control reports, your concept, your planning, and your reports. So all of these activities, when you look into it'll be more clear when we go through the application process, because it's clearly defined in each kind of area what your work package is, and you have to nominate or name what are the activities and what are your deliverables. But these are how you shape each work package with those kind of activities and those kind of deliverables. The second one is communication and dissemination. So what are the activities that could take place under this work package? Communication dissemination campaigns, your promotional of events, your production of communication and dissemination material. What could you be delivering on is around communication, your plan, your strategy, a website that you might design. You could incorporate the plans around that, and then the kind of outcome of the website. Your newsletters throughout the year as part of your project, publications, brochures, social media, banners, badges, all of those kind of branding material parts of the deliverables of the communication can be incorporated there. And it's really just proving it by way of documentation. Artistic activities. So these are kind of aside from the communication and the management, these are your artistic elements. And this is crucial. Obviously, it's a culture project, so you do need artistic activities. And this is one where you can really kind of think about it in a creative way, rather than the other work packages are more the management and delivery of the project. So what could be activities under this work package? It could be rehearsals, co-production, coordination of the co-production and co-creation, concerts, exhibitions, circulation of works and repertoires, digitization of cultural heritage material, etc. So basically your activities that are directly connected to the project. And these can be across the length of the project, but it's just all bunched into the artistic activity. The deliverables, again, how you're going to prove basically that you have delivered these artistic activities. So they could be a schedule of the planning of rehearsals, prototypes around songs or artworks or concerts, could be technology-based products, an app or something like that you've developed as part of the project, or publication and digital materials. So another work package could be solely around capacity building. And as Katie said, obviously we do have artistic activities within these culture awards, but they're also around building capacity for artists and for organizations. So the activities that could be underneath this work package could be artistic residencies for artists, apprenticeship activities, mentoring programs, training courses, and they could be for members of the organization and artists, master classes, and those kind of things. Deliverables could be your schedule of mentoring programs, the evaluation of a training course, your mentoring course, travel documents and such like that. Another possible work package, and as I said at the beginning, going over 4 is really asking for a lot of work for yourselves, but it depends on whether it's more crucial to your project or not. So networking and sharing of knowledge. The activities under this could be conferences, workshops, symposia, seminars, and your deliverables around them could be your program, your agenda of your conference. You could present a list of your attendees to workshops, your conference conclusion reports, policy papers, etc. And yeah, so looking at eligible costs. Sorry, I'm moving things around my screen here, so it's taking me a second. Eligible costs. So first of all, you're looking at direct staff costs. And then as a separate, so subcontracting is another cost. And obviously with subcontracting, they really want to see that you're not subcontracting something out that you could actually be doing in-house. So really make sure that it is very clear that you're subcontracting a piece of work that could be a development of a website or a design and a production of a publication, but that it is not something that could be carried within the project itself. Purchase costs, so looking at travel, accommodation and subsistence. Then again, equipment. So look under the application. So in the call document, you will see this a depreciation sheet around your equipment and how you cost that. Other goods, works and services, including artist fee and production costs. So obviously they're very key to your artist activities. Your financial support to third parties. So here we were talking earlier that third parties can be an organization that you're working with or a professional that you're working with in the UK who are going to deliver activities. So the UK as a third country is now seen also as a third party. So it can be a subcontractor that is involved in supplying some sort of activity or some sort of service to your project, but they're not a partner, they're not a lead. and their costs cannot exceed 30% of the budget. So that's just to be clear that you can work with UK organisations or, as I said, cultural professionals, but it's under that kind of guise. If you have any more questions about that, get back to us. If you are thinking or you're already in talks with working with an organisation that's based in the UK. So 7% indirect costs. So these are looking at your rent, which is a cost that is not directly related to the implementation of the project. We're just going to look at the implementation now. So looking at, sorry, moving over again. Looking at the assessment of the overall application. So obviously it's a maximum of 100 points. There is a threshold for funding that is set at 70 out of 100. So you must reach that target to be eligible. And more than 50% of the maximum score under each category. So they look at these categories for assessment. So one is the relevance, and that carries a weight of 30 out of the 100. So obviously that is kind of the top of the mark. So you really need to be hitting high on your relevance because it's a weighted amount. Your quality of content and activities. So really, how does the overall proposal relate to the quality of your activities? Is it relevant, but also are they really well defined and well planned and feasible? The project management, again, sorry, the quality and content is another weighted, so it's up at 30 as well. So you really need to be hitting hard on those areas of the project. Project management is at 20. Again, looking at the overall project, how it's going to be managed within your partnership and within the work packages. So is that really set out kind of feasibly and fairly among the project partners? And really, do you make the case for that? How your project management is set up. And dissemination. This is really key. It seems like it's an easy one to do well in your application, but it actually really needs a lot of work as well. It's weighted less, but it's still very important, because what Creative Europe really wants you to do is to be able to disseminate your project from the beginning, that it is really important that, you know, the public knows about it, that you're engaging, that you are you know, using the project as a tool to disseminate about cultural projects. So really put the work in there, whether it's your plan for dissemination and communication, your work, your website, other elements that you're going to use in your dissemination of the project. So just looking at Creative Europe from an Irish perspective, in the last nearly 10 years now, over 108 Irish organisations were involved in Creative Europe funded projects. That's with a total of grants coming in at 77.5 million. The direct grant aid coming to Ireland is just over 11.1 million. So for the first 3 years, I think, Katie, we were looking at in the new programme, 32.1 million came in project grants, and that's with 6.1 million coming to Ireland. So we really are punching above our weight in terms of the programme so far. So we look at the next steps of how you might be approaching a project. If you're thinking about it already and you are in contact with your partners, you really need to consider a few things. So first of all, we would say looking at the capacity of your organization. Obviously, a small organization and a small amount of organizations can apply to the small cooperation project award, but really looking at how what kind of capacity do you have for delivering those projects? Are you overworked already as a small organization, or do you have this work going on already within your organization, and you're kind of just building this project in as part of your work already? How does your work align with the Creative Europe priorities? So Katie had looked at the list of those priorities. and you're kind of going to zone in on 2 of them maximum, because I think really going over on too many priorities is going to swamp your work, and actually it doesn't really mean that your project's going to do any better. Focusing in on 2 that really match what your work is already, and that you're not kind of reinventing the wheel and starting a massive new project that doesn't relate to what or align to your work already. Identify your partners nationally. That could be universities, local authorities, peer organizations. Have you worked on a smaller scale project before? Have you started these conversations, or are you kind of working in similar areas and you see the chance for some collaboration? Start your project ideas, your development. What is your kind of proposal in terms of those priorities and objectives of the cooperation project? So really looking at where your work connects in, or where your proposal, your idea connects. We can help you with a partner search, so do get in touch with us if you're looking for other European organizations. That can be quite daunting if you don't have a kind of partnership in place, or you haven't started that already. As I said, start with your work packages from the very beginning of your development of the project, because it just makes it easier and very focused from the beginning. Keep in touch with us, and the deadline for the cooperation projects is around the end of January, but we'll confirm that date. The other thing is, so moving on, because I mentioned partnership. So we do, obviously, the Creative Europe Culture Office with the Arts Council have developed a co-fund award, and this is to co-fund a cooperation project, obviously. So do look at that. It is for when you're successful, so it'll be in the future, but just to keep that in the back of your mind. It'll cover the Irish artistic activities and those costs directly related to the implementation of the project. Now the deadline for this year is coming up. It's December the 7th. So whether you're at that stage or not, I don't know. But if you have any questions, get in touch. And so far, the Arts Council has co-funded €582,372 to Irish organisations under the cooperation project. So that's been really brilliant. Now, I just want to say one thing while I'm on the co-funding. I'll come back to the Iris. So this year we started, we introduced the Strand 2. So this could be key if you haven't applied, or you're in the midst of trying to find partners and develop a proposal for a cooperation project. So Strand 2 is for Irish-based arts organisations to look at supporting themselves for partner meetings within Europe. The budget is €2,000. The deadline, it's open now at the moment on our website, co-funding Strand 2. The deadline is December the 7th, and those kind of things. So it's a very simple enough, it's an easy award to apply for. So I'd really encourage you to look at it. You'll be required a proposal, a CV, a kind of letter, or some sort of email confirmation between the partners and your meetings that are planned. And to go back quickly, I know we're just at 12 o'clock. The Iris is another avenue of support that the International Arts team offer, and it is around international residencies. So we really encourage you, if you're not at the stage of Creative Europe, it is a really great way to develop those partnerships, to be working around specifically international residencies, but then with that experience, it could go on to go forwards to a cooperation project application. So the guidelines will be up on March the 8th, 2024, with a deadline of Thursday the 5th. And also international activities as a point of ongoing support can be applied for under Agility. And in specifically international activities around training and capacity building are now kind of really flagged as part of agility. So just keep an eye on the next round for the Agility Award. But they're also supported under project awards, under Arts Grants funding and strategic funding. So we are really keen to be supporting international activities. We have our upcoming, so the application workshop for the cooperation project will be on the 30th of November. So obviously, if you're really interested and you're at a stage of application, this is key, because we will lead you through the application itself bit by bit. You can look at our past events on our YouTube channel, sign up to our newsletter. I also will, if you are interested on another kind of residency or European level, Culture Moves Europe, you may have heard, is another award that is managed by the Goethe Institute, and they run an individual artist award, and they also run a residency host award, which Ireland is eligible to apply for. And I will be interviewing a most recent recipient of this award, Motion Chapel, which is a dance residency in Roscommon. And they'll be talking about how they applied, what they applied for, and kind of the project themselves. So we'll use that plus all the information. So that'll be up on our website by the end of next week. So that award is open at the moment, with an application deadline at the end of January. So I think that is us. Keep in touch, follow us on social media. We're always posting things, whether it's opportunities or our own events around Creative Europe.